Hello, I think we are live. So if anyone is there, can you let me know if you can hear me? Because I'm outside amongst the creaking bamboo and I don't have any headsets or microphone on me besides the computer. So I need to know that you can hear me, but I'm not seeing. Oh, okay. Got a couple of people that have joined. Let me know if you can hear me. Just type something in or do a thumbs up, because there's a lot of outside noise and I want to make sure that you can actually hear me. So, oh yes, we have thumbs up, you can. Yay! Awesome, thank you. Now I can move ahead. So what I wanted to do, thanks Grace, nice to see you. It's really interesting that today I wanted to talk about trauma and the experiences, and then moving into kind of tools, I guess, of how we can overcome it and regain our self-worth and sense of self. But while I was setting up the video, I was looking, because you get the image back at you, and I could see the effects of some of my facial injuries drooping, and I was like trying to angle the computer going, oh my God, you can see that my eyes aren't quite symmetrical, my mouth isn't quite symmetrical because of the, some nerve damage and stuff over the years. And I'm like, Lisa, that's the point. That's the point of this video. So just be cool with that. But it's really interesting because I haven't noticed it that much before. So isn't that, it's always very interesting the way things come up for us. So I thought I really wanted to share this post because I think we all suffer trauma at some point in our lives, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, but there'd be very few people, I think, that would be immune to some form of trauma. And I think it's really important to share with people how we can actually move through it and not stay a victim, right? So, these things that happen to us, these incidences, like whether I said it's physical, emotional, mental, they are part of our lives. They are part of our story. So we're not going to get rid of them. They're going to be with us. But if we can shift it to being that of a lesson and a time of growth rather than this burden that we're carrying through life with us, then I think that's kind of the key, because sweeping it under the carpet never works, because one day I say to people, you got to move that carpet one day or pull that rug up and it's all going to go flooding out and it's going to be a mess. So we need ways that we can actually deal with the trauma. And I guess, it's become more talked about recently with PTSD, but back in my day, that really wasn't a term that was used. So it's great that it's actually getting that recognition, that people are starting to realize that there are, effects of trauma that we can carry with us. And we want that to be positive. We want to be able to shift it into a more positive learning opportunity rather than this burden that sits on our shoulders and plays out in very negative ways, such as addiction. I mean, addiction is a critical one, I think. How easy is it to numb? Because we want to numb pain, right? So I think addiction, a lot of addiction is born out of trauma of some form. So before I go into, I guess, some of the effects and what we can do about it, I thought I'd share with you a bit of my own story. So my very first, I guess, physical trauma was when I was about 11 and had a major car accident. And it affected, well, physically, my face. So I had 100+ stitches in my face, took them hours to stitch me up, and subsequent plastic surgeries after that. So that's the physical side, right? But at the time, I didn't realize how it was playing out in me emotionally and mentally. So I went from being a pretty good student at school to being a real rebel. And, my grades started dropping, and the path that I thought I was on, it just didn't happen because I just didn't get the grades that I needed, basically, because I was playing out, acting out. And I didn't know at the time why, but on reflection, I can really see it was this form of rebellion. I didn't know what to do with what had happened to me. There was no counselling back then. There was no guidance around how to deal with it. So that really, really played out. And I think that had a lot to do with, my very heavy alcohol consumption in my late teens and 20s. I think would definitely have been a part of that now that I kind of reflect. And, you know, if any of my psych friends are listening, I do have quite a few psychologist friends. Feel free to butt in at any time, because I know a lot of you deal with PTSD and trauma, and especially in children as well. So that was, I guess, one of my first major experiences of dealing with trauma. But one of the positives I did take away out of it at the time, maybe not right at that very time, but a few years later, was an understanding that life can be taken away at any moment. You know, we were very close to having it much worse than what it was. We were close to diving off an edge of a cliff, basically. And I think, you know, if they're the bits of gold in those moments, that if we can focus on those instead of the uglier parts, I guess, then we can actually get greater insight into why we're here and gain a sense of purpose. And it helps us deal with that trauma because it gives us perspective. You know, when you suddenly have that perspective of, oh shit, life can be taken at any moment, I need to live it. You know, I think that's a key piece of gold. Oh, look at that light. It's just streaming through and bouncing off. Hi, Ian. I think that's really, really important if we can do that. So a lot of the messaging, whilst I'm talking about my personal experiences, it's kind of trying to bring it back to, okay, what's the gold in it? You know, what can we take away that's positive? Because like I said earlier, you know, it's part of our life journey. These things aren't going to leave us. It's how we shift our perspective around them. So then later on, about 10 years ago, actually, I was married and not happily, and wanted to end that relationship. And it got nasty and physical, and I ended up in hospital with a major blowout, fractured eye socket. So again, to the face, another injury to the face. So I'm sure there's lots of messaging in that as well. Always the right side of my face too. But that was really, really interesting, really interesting. So not only was I dealing with my own trauma and, you know, dealing with the children, how's that? Is that a bit better? You know, having to make sure my children, no, it's not better. There we go. Having to make sure my children, of course they're going to be affected by it, but, you know, wanted to make sure that they were as, balanced and healed and not affected any more negatively than they already were, I guess. I didn't want to add to their burden. So that kind of spurred me on to do my own healing. But it was really interesting to see people's reactions. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, because this is the side that I think sometimes doesn't get talked about, and the stigmatism that goes with something like that. So I noticed a lot of the local community that we lived in found it really, really challenging to deal with. A lot of my circle, I guess not my close friends were there to rally around me, but my circle just kind of backed away because it was all a bit too difficult, too confronting, too challenging for them. I remember once when I was in the hospital still, having a young police officer just stop. She was taking my statement and she just paused at the end of the bed, and I actually said to her, "Are you okay?" And she just looked at me and said, "You're making me realise that these things can happen to anyone." You know, she said, prior to seeing you in this situation, there was a stigmatism around, you know, certain socioeconomic groups, and you know where I'm going with this. But seeing you in this state, lying in this bed, makes me realise it can absolutely be anyone. So just watching what was going on was just absolutely fascinating to see that. And then the effect it had on my career. So I was climbing the corporate ladder very successfully, very well. And then a little bit down the track, so everything had kind of settled down, and, you know, we'd gone our separate ways. We're in that process of healing. I was attending meditation. Sun's gone. Depends which way the bamboo goes. Sorry, guys. So, yeah, I was attending meditation classes and working through my own healing. A role came up that I would have been a natural to step into, and I didn't get it. And I remember thinking, that's really, really bizarre. This is, you know, obviously a natural progression for me to move into this role. And it was years later that I heard that the reason why I didn't get that role was suddenly I was a single mother, and how on earth would I be able to manage the travel and the role and so forth. So it had this lasting impact in my career as well. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So it depends how you want to look at things and how you shift your perspective. It actually made me and helped me reassess. It's a bit of wind. Helped me reassess the direction I wanted to take my life in. So this is more the getting now to the point that I want to be making. There's times, opportunities to self-reflect, move through our emotions, because we're going to feel guilt, shame, blame, a whole gamut of emotions, anger. But once you work through that, it's about reaching that point of going, okay, well, there's gold in this. This has happened for a reason to me. What is it that I'm meant to be moving into now? What's the shift I need to make to ensure that the rest of my life is a happier journey, I guess. So that led me to my coaching and so forth. But I guess the other point, going back to talking about those emotions, I don't know if any of you are Brené Brown fans. Make a comment. Hi, everyone. Make a comment if you are. Just a little thumbs up or something. I love Brené Brown's work. Oh, there's a few hearts. Yay. She is awesome. And she talks about compassion and how we can develop compassion. Oh, there's lots of love coming through. Thank you. How we can develop more compassion by having boundaries in place. Right? So this is really critical, because I often talk to people about forgiveness. So for me, forgiveness was yeah. Hi, Andrew. Yeah, she's amazing, isn't she? I love that woman. Lots of gold in her writings and, yeah, her messaging. I talk to people about forgiveness, right? So now we're going to get into a bit of an icky area, because if you're dealing with trauma and you haven't yet faced this forgiveness piece, this can be really, really challenging for people. I've had many conversations around this. Forgiveness is not condoning. And it's not this wishy-washy version of, oh, it's fine, everything's fine. That is not true forgiveness. That's like whitewashing stuff, really. That does nothing. It needs to be authentic, right? So it's a journey to get to that point of forgiveness, because you've got to work through your own stuff, your own blame and shame and guilt. So you've got to forgive yourself first, really, because we've got to take responsibility as well. But if you can get to that point of finding compassion for the other person, it helps us move into a place of forgiveness. Now, like I said, the best way to do that is with boundaries. It's not boundaryless, and it's not about whitewashing. So it actually enables you to move forward, because you're not dragging this shit with you, because basically that's what it is, isn't it? It's just crap. I mean, it's not a great feeling to be carrying blame and anger and all those awful emotions through the rest of your life. So I think forgiveness is an absolute critical part in moving through any form of trauma, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, as I said. But it is a process. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's a magic wand and it's done, because then it's not authentic, right? So you've got to work through everything else first and then come to that place of forgiveness, and then you find the compassion. So, you know, for me, for my ex-partner, because he is my children's father. I need another coffee, I think. My children's father, you know, it's really important that they have a relationship with him. And he's not a bad man. he did one bad thing, right? So again, it's being able to separate the two things, the actions from the person. But there are boundaries. I'll go out for dinner with him occasionally with the kids, but he's not gonna move back in or anything like that. There are clear boundaries. It's like, okay, this is how long I can do with you for now, and that's healthy. That actually enables me to have a healthy relationship with him. So that's really, again, a big part of this story. So it wasn't to get on here and bang on about the actual traumas that I've been through. They're obviously part of it, and it's important that you understand where I'm coming from, but we all have trauma of some sort. I'm sure of it. I don't know anyone that wouldn't. Like I said, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental. Anxiety is a huge thing that can play out if we don't deal with the trauma and we don't shift our perspective around it. So a lot of people walking through life with addictions, anxiety, I believe a lot of it is trauma-based. So again, it's around shifting our perspective and taking it from that victimhood into how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? And then when you do, you do find a deeper sense of self, because you're delving in and you're finding your power again rather than giving it away, which, if you're not forgiving people, is what you're doing effectively too, or yourself. So the next thing I wanted to move into, so I've made notes because there's so much I could talk about, but I didn't want to babble on for too long, was, let me just check my notes. Well, I think it's, yeah, okay. But the other thing was, I think it's really important too to share our stories, because so many other people are dealing with this stuff, and I think it's important that people understand that there is a way through it. There is a way through it, and you don't have to stay a victim for the rest of your life. So part of the tools that I used, I'm not going to go into them all now, but one of the key tools that I used when I was first dealing with all of this, when I was recognizing it, because you've got to have awareness around it first, don't you? But when I gained the awareness that I wanted to and needed to move through this in a healthy way, was meditation. And I know it sounds so flippant, and I know, often people will come to me, Lisa, I've got this problem, what do I do? And I'm like, meditate. It's so true. It is so effective. It is incredibly effective. And those of you that meditate out there, stick your hand up. For those of you that meditate out there would understand how effective it is. You are going inside. You are finding that center. You are finding that true essence of who you are. So it transcends those pains and hurts, and that is how you do capture the essence of you and find out what it is that drives you, what you want to do with the rest of your life. It's so powerful. Yes, some hearts. Yeah, isn't it? Yes. It's incredibly powerful. So that was one of the key things I did. I started a weekly meditation class, which led me now to, almost being certified as a meditation teacher, because I understand how critically important it is, but how powerful it is. I don't think there's anything else quite as powerful. I've had people talk to me about taking, plant medicine and all sorts of things, and I'm not anti any of that, but I've also said to them that I can access a lot of that through meditation. I don't feel for me that I need to do that. And that was the other thing. I didn't feel for me that I needed counselling of the traditional type in terms of psychology and stuff. Again, I'm not anti that. I think if that works for you, then you bloody will do it, kind of thing. It's not judgment, but for me, I knew that the meditation was going to be the best way through it. Journaling is another great way of moving through stuff, because you're purging out your emotions, stuff that you didn't even realize was brewing in your head and your heart and everywhere else in your body. It just releases it, and then you can rip it up, burn it, whatever you want to do with it, or keep it if you want to reflect back on it. But they're just some of the really, I think, some of the best tools I know. And just connecting with nature. Again, it's about shifting perspective. I think that's the key here. It's shifting your perspective. So nature is a great way to do that. You go out in the forest and walk through a forest, and you get a much more grounded sense of your own being, but also how you fit into the world. And again, it gives you perspective. I was talking to a man the other day, actually, didn't think I was going to bring this up, but it just popped into my head. I was in a restaurant, of all places, having dinner with my children, and got talking to this guy who had these 2 children. His wife wasn't there, unfortunately, but she was from Zimbabwe. And she had been through a horrendous time, absolutely horrendous time. And he had journeyed back. Apparently there's a video, it was even on TV, but I don't really watch much TV. There's a documentary on it, so some of you might be familiar with the story. But they ventured back to Zimbabwe to retrace some of her roots. And he said some of the things he saw were amazing, and in, you know, a heartbreaking sense, but it also in a sense that gives you perspective. You know, we're here, we've got this life. Let's enjoy it, you know, let's make the most of it, and let's be of service. So, you know, again, this is part of why I wanted to do this video. It's like, I know other people, most of us have suffered trauma at some point. So for me to share my story and what worked for me is hopefully a way that I'm helping others, you know, and I think that's a critical piece that we miss in our society as well. We've missed that. You know, it's about what can we get, you know, we get these jobs, so we get more money, so we buy the house and the car and all that, and, you know, I have all of that, but again, we've lost perspective, we've lost sight of the fact that we're actually here to help each other, to support each other, and to grow together. So that's the messaging of this video. I hope it's helped. If you know of anyone that you think this might have actually helped, that has suffered through trauma and is still struggling to come out the other side of it, please share it with them. I, you know, do coaching. I'm more than happy for anyone to post message me. I do a lot of coaching around this as well. So if you need some help, or like I said, if you've got friends that you think that might need help, get them to message me, and I'm more than happy to have a chat. You know, I might not be the best option for them. It might be, like I said, a traditional psychologist or something like that, but I can certainly help them find what might work for them best. So much love to everyone. Please, if you feel inspired, share this video. And yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. And if you've got any questions or comments that you want to write down now, and I can answer them here and now, please do so. I might just sit here for a minute and sip my tea, listen to the bamboo. No one's got anything. Cool. Alrighty. Well, you have a lovely Friday, lovely week ahead. Like I said, and if there is anything that you just want to privately message me, by all means do so. All right, much love. Bye, guys.